Hey everyone, welcome to the Creator Show. This is your host, Ruben Drieger, and I am really excited. We're bringing on a very special guest here today to talk about a lot of things. We'll talk about her journey of entrepreneurship, but we're going to be diving deep into marketing and specifically some myths around marketing. And as new entrepreneurs, a lot of you guys are kind of just like a little bit like deer in the headlights, wondering what the heck do I do? And so I think this episode's going to be really clarifying. It's going to be really helpful and give you some tactical advice. So before we get into that, though, I want you to meet our guest. So Tara, give everyone a little bit of like an introduction, who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I love speaking with entrepreneurs who are at this stage in their lives and in their businesses because everything is just full of opportunity and you're just like so excited, and then you just don't know where to start or where to like what your next step will be and where you may get stuck. So I'm really excited about our topic today. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, of course. It's my pleasure. And so let's start before we get into the marketing. Let's talk a little bit about your personal journey. And the reason I always get our guests to share it is because our audience is in that new entrepreneurship stage. A lot of them are always wondering, okay, what is the path to get to where I want to go? And you would be a person that they'd maybe look up to and be like, okay, she's at a level or an area of like, I want to achieve that. So let's talk about the journey a little bit, maybe talk it like step by step, how you went from just starting to full-time to whatever it was. And so let's go through that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an online marketing expert, and I have had my agency in Vivo for almost 5 years. This July will be 5 years, which is crazy to think about because it's been quite a while, and I've learned so many things. And the business and me, we look completely different than we did 5 years ago. At the same time, it also feels like we're new too, because we're always coming up against something where we're going to have to up level in one way or another. So it's been a very interesting journey. It started out when I've been designing and developing online presences for 17 years since I was literally in middle school.
That's awesome.
And I went to go get my bachelor's degree in psychology, and my plan was to go and get a PhD in psychology. And halfway through my bachelor's, I was like, I don't feel like sitting around and talking to people all day. But that's not really what it was. It was more, it just wasn't the path for me. So I graduated with a degree in psychology and then tried to find jobs either in web design or marketing or psychology even. And I was sending out resumes and applying, and nobody was calling me back. And I had like friends and people look at my application and my resume and go, there's nothing wrong with it. There are no red flags. Why isn't anyone reaching out to you?
Right.
I applied to one position. It was called one retail position, and it was called sales associate. And I was like, okay, well, at least I'll get sales experience because I'd only ever flipped ice cream before, scooped ice cream. We flipped it up in the air. That's why I'm thinking flipped.
Perfect. Yeah.
And they called me back and hired me on the spot. And it actually was for cashier. That's what my pay stub literally said, was cashier.
Okay, yeah.
So I was a cashier with a bachelor's degree, and I like to joke that I'm still bitter about it to this day. So I tried to move up in the company, and for a lot of different reasons, I couldn't. And so about 9 months into it, I was like, I'm going to take life into my own hands. So I registered tarawilder.com and started a freelance web design business. And eventually a local IT company reached out to me. We had a conversation and they hired me. What they wanted was they wanted to expand their creative services department. And they needed somebody to head up that effort. And so I was the one like finding the clients, closing them, performing the services, and eventually I would have hired people. And I asked them how they found me, and they said they Googled me. They just Googled web designer, Daytona Beach. No, they didn't Google me. They did a Google search and found me. They typed in web designer, Daytona Beach, came to my portfolio and was interested in what they saw, reached out. We had a conversation, they hired me. And for the rest of the time that I was there, they still enjoyed having me. What I love about this story is it really speaks to the power of the web, but not only that I was found, but that they saw my website and they liked it enough to want to reach out, had a conversation. What they saw when I was sitting in front of them was in alignment with what the website was about. And so they were like, okay, this girl's cool, we're going to hire her. And then I stayed on. So I didn't end up being somebody that they didn't think I would be. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that is the power of an online presence, a very carefully crafted one. Eventually, I left and started my own business because of a few different reasons. And one of them was that I was like, I could do this better. And I like the idea of unlimited potential and opportunity. And now here we are.
Oh, I love it.
No, that's stories later.
Very, very cool. And I think there's a bunch of things that I want to dive in a little bit right now. We'll get into the marketing. Then we'll tie in some of this at the end of it, because I think this is really important. So when you were in the cashier job and you decided, like, I'm going to do my own thing, that transition, I want to talk about it because a lot of people that listen to this are going through that, or have gone through it, or will go through it. And so talk about what were the things that maybe was the courage you had to have, or like how you set yourself up to make that transition. Was it kind of freaky? Was it pretty easy for you? Talk about that transition and how you felt through it, how you did it, because I think that's going to be actually very helpful.
Yeah, really good question. I think it was the naivete of a girl in her early 20s. So I was 22 when I did it. And later when I started my business, I think I was 24 or 25. And it was that I didn't have very much life experience.
Right.
So I didn't know all the things that could go wrong. I didn't have all these fears from like a lifetime of experience that could give me, you know? So I was like, oh, it's just $12 a year for a domain. And I already had hosting. So I'll just start a website, see what happens. And that's kind of what happened. So that's what I like encourage people to do, is like, just try to be like, not to call myself a child, but you know, children, they don't have fears. They're courageous. They just go out and do the thing. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I'm afraid now, I try to summon that courage of 22-year-old Tara, who is just like, hey, let's do all the things. I'm invincible.
I love that. I love that. And it's really interesting. I've been talking to a couple of our clients about actually who they were as a child, or how confident they were, right? And it's not that we were born in a way that we were fearful of everything. We were taught to fear things, or we were taught to like downplay things. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing, that you were courageous enough. And so you started your own business, and you're like, okay, I can do this design work. And basically, like, to walk through actually, because a couple of things that stood out to me is you started to get traffic. And at this point, it was through Google, through people browsing. You had the right keywords, you were targeted, right? So you were attracting your targeted ideal clients, and they came to your website. Now, this is a really big thing, because a lot of people, I mean, whether it's a website or social media, I see it as the same thing actually, is they don't have it optimized to actually not only keep people on the page, but also get people to be interested in what you're talking about. So let's dive straight into that area of marketing. What are the key things to have in that like split second when people land on your page, or they land on your profile on social media, that you need to have there to hook them in?
Well, first, you want to make sure that you're repelling people as well.
Right.
And to do that, what I mean by that is you need to be really clear on who your people are. So the people who don't fit that group, they don't stay. And if people who don't fit that group don't stay, that means you're on the right track, because that means your message is clear enough and specific enough to where if it's speaking to the right people, they will actually stay. So it's really about keeping your content, your vibe, your message, both implicit and explicit, are resonating with those people. So don't be afraid of having what you're talking about and the way you're putting yourself out there be really not necessarily niched down, but really specific. Like the way that you would speak to a 20-year-old woman, it is completely different than an 80-year-old grandfather, you know?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. And so, no, I think that's really good. Everyone listening, write that one down. And this is something people can use for the social media, because a lot of some people's profiles on social media is basically their landing page. It's basically where people are seeing their stuff. And I mean, as attention spans go down in marketing, you need to catch people faster, right? And so, and I think you'll agree with this, and you can maybe talk talk kind of through this as well. But one of the important things I find is knowing exactly where they're at in their journey, exactly where they're at in, whether it's they're like, I know, like, let's say you want to help someone with weight loss, but you know your ideal client has already gone through Weight Watchers, or they've gone through maybe trying out these shakes or whatever it is. And if you can in your bio say, if you've tried the quick fad diets, the shakes, the pills, the Weight Watchers, etc., but you want something better, look at my content, or here's a free guide on how you can lose weight that's better than those things. And you're catching someone right in that journey. Is that something that you utilize as well, that kind of philosophy?
Oh, yeah. Because if you just say, hey, I have this method, this unique method, okay, that's interesting. But when you say, if you've tried fad diet A, B, or C, and they haven't worked for you, check out this new thing, which, by the way, what I just said is a really lame copywriting.
Totally.
But if you call out what it is that they've already experienced, they're like so much more likely to listen, because they're like, well, yeah, I have tried those things. And now they may not explicitly, consciously say that, like they may not realize that, but something's going on deep inside of them where they're like putting themselves in your copy and what you're saying, and saying, this person knows me. This is what I have experienced. And so let's try this new thing, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I had a classic example the other day on one of my Instagram accounts. It says, are you sick of being in group coaching and really want one-to-one mentorship? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And literally I had someone like they followed me and they messaged me. And they're like, I'm sick of being in group coaching. I want one-to-one mentorship. I'm like, there you go. There you go. So it's a clear,
that's perfect.
Right? No, I was like, I thought, whatever. I always think of how we can optimize stuff. So
no, that's excellent. And what's so great about that is that post could have been just, hey, here are the benefits of one-on-one mentorship. And that person may have thought in the past or even currently like, oh, I would love to have a one-on-one coach. They read that, they're like, yeah, it would be helpful. And then keep scrolling. But if you called out the pain, which is what you did, the pain of, group, it's great, but I'm not getting the attention I need. Then you pulled them in and said, oh, you're tired of group coaching. Here's another thing. And they're like, yeah, so much more likely to listen. That's a really good example.
Thank you. No, we try to do what we preach, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I think this would lead actually really nicely into, I know we wanted to talk about some kind of myths of marketing, things that you've learned over the years through mentors, through trial and error, that you see a lot of entrepreneurs when they're starting, they're doing these things that don't work and you want to kind of uncover them. So let's run through those, because I think that's going to be so tactical for everyone listening.
Yeah, it's really important, these things that we're going to talk about, because a lot of times when you're new in business, you don't even realize that these like fears or these thoughts or stories are even coming up for you. Like it didn't even really occur to me until I started doing the work to realize that that's what was going on for me or for my clients. And then my coaches and their coaches were saying certain things. So it's kind of sometimes from experience when you learn these things. So I think like hearing them right now will be really helpful, because this may be either the first time you hear it or it'll strengthen the idea in your head.
Perfect.
So
I'm excited.
It won't stop you. Yeah. So the very first thing is that people are oftentimes afraid to invest in themselves, both in marketing and in business, because they're afraid they won't get an ROI. I totally get that, because who wants to waste money? And especially in business, you want to like spend every single dollar wisely, because you don't want to be put out of business. We're all concerned about that to some extent, right?
Yeah.
So you want to spend your money wisely. Now, the thing with that, there's so many different factors that go into not getting an ROI. And one of them simply is that you don't take big steps. You don't get uncomfortable. If you don't make that investment, you're not going to get a return on investment. And then the second thing with that is that you need to put in the work. I'm sure you've experienced this, where people will enroll into programs or courses or whatever it is and then not do the work. So they didn't get their ROI on it. And that makes sense, because you didn't do the work. So there has to be some level of trust and belief in yourself, and understanding that you have to do the work, because this is not going to be a magic bullet or magic pill.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that those things are really important. And because a lot of, and this is actually, it's funny that we're talking about marketing, a lot of, whether it's agencies or business coaches, will kind of market their services as a magic pill, which gives the thought that you can buy this program and it magically solves your problem. And I think, I mean, we're moving to, I think, a stage of online marketing where transparency is coming through and people are really understanding, and even marketing that, hey, we can give you all the steps, but you got to put the work into it. And a lot of people, I think that's going to be so helpful because a lot of people feel burnt because they felt like they didn't get what was supposed to be delivered when in fact they didn't put the work in. Is that kind of a trend that you've seen as well?
Yes. However, it is worth saying that sometimes people do get burnt because of the other party.
Very
It is true. It is true. But it's really a matter of also being honest with yourself. So I have had a lot of people come to me and be like, I hired this web designer or this marketer. They said they would do this, but they didn't. And so then we start working together. And it turns out that they are letting me take the reins way too much.
Right.
And I feel like they need to have a little bit more input. Like I ask, obviously, like I want my clients to be informed every step of the way, and I want them to have input every step of the way. But as we work together, I'm like, okay, I can see why they were disappointed with the other person. Maybe the other person was a bad business person, but at the same time, I think that maybe there were times when they should have spoken up and said, hey, this didn't work for me, or can you do this, or ask for what you want. So look at your own contribution to the situation, whether it's you're outsourcing to another company, you've got a course or a program that you're not getting an ROI from. There was one program that I spent a pretty penny in, and I got a lot out of it. I really did. I did not have exponential results, and it's because I did not apply everything that they taught. And so, you know, I mean, part of me was kind of like sad that I didn't get those exponential results, but I know that it was all me.
For sure. For sure. No, I think the kind of concise way of saying it all is that any kind of course or program is a two-way street.
Yes.
Where like, as much as like, and this is something I tell my team every week, I'm like, we will try our absolute best to get as like much of like the confusion, the hard stuff out of the way for our clients. Like we will try our best, but at the end of the day, it's still a two-way street. And we're doing all we can on our side of the street, but there always has to be that other end coming in. And so, no, I think that's really good. And it's a really good kind of just reality check with people, because I think a lot of them, yes, they maybe had a bad experience, but maybe they're now dragging that into their current experiences, blaming other people or other things. When, yes, there are some maybe coaches that aren't the best, but at the end of the day, someone who takes radical responsibility will always win at the end of the day, because they're always going after it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I do caution you, not you, oh, you too, I guess, but everybody who's watching and listening. I do caution you to not go too far in one direction or another and take too much blame, quote unquote, blame. And like, be like, I'm the one who sucks so much. Oh my gosh, they did everything for me. There's a balance. There should be a balance.
100%. No, I completely agree. So yeah, let's dive into maybe some other things that you're seeing in marketing, or maybe it's in the kind of the mindset of marketing that are holding people back. Let's dive through a couple more things that you think could be helpful.
Yes. This is a classic one.
Yeah.
But it may be classic to us because we've heard it so much or we've done a lot of work, but it may not be obvious to a lot of people. To those of you who it is, listen, you cannot have a business or have an online presence if you're afraid of being judged. Fear of judgment is incredibly human. It is incredibly human. It's one of the ways we've survived, right? By thinking about how we're putting ourselves out there so we can survive and live and not be eaten and all that. You know, we have to put some thought into how we behave and how others perceive us. But if you're going to be afraid of judgment and allow that fear to stop you, then you're not going to get anything done. You're not going to get anything done. And it also affects how you do other things in marketing and business too. Now, maybe Ruben, you can speak. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this, but for me, that fear of judgment will always be there. It'll always be there. But it's a matter of how I respond to it, you know?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's very natural as entrepreneurs are growing their business. Every new level that you get to, you have to become a new version of yourself. And every time you actually show up as that new version, there is going to be a fear of judgment, because inherently leaving people behind in a sense when you keep on growing. And so it's something that doesn't, I mean, I hate to be the one to say it, but it doesn't go away. When you go from 0 to 6 figures, there's going to be, and you're that new person and you're showing up as that new person. Some people are not going to like it. But when you go to the next level, it's going to be even, there's going to be a couple more. And you need to understand there is such a thing as to be successful, you got to have some thick skin. You got to actually be able to take some of that and understand that you're on a growth path that's different than a lot of other people. And honestly, I mean, entrepreneurship is pretty lonely for a lot of people because of that. And that's why I think the online world is so great, because it's connecting a lot of people who used to be more lonely, actually. And so, no, thanks for sharing that. I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah. And I want to add one more thing to it. So when you were saying, like, as you go to the next level, you, there may be some people who feel a certain way about that. Whenever I come across something like that, and this applies to so many different areas in life, if I'm afraid of a consequence and I want something, I want something and I'm afraid of the consequences of it, I think, which would I prefer? Would I prefer such and
Right.
such person to not be my friend anymore? Or no, would I prefer to have such and such person as my friend, but only make $30,000 in my business this year?
Yeah.
Or the other way around? And it's not that you want to like push that person aside and never be friends with them again. But if
For
you
sure.
have that kind of friendship with them where it's going to affect them, anyway, that's a whole nother can of worms. But the point is compare the two and see which one do you actually want.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really good. It comes back down to what do you feel called to,
Mm-hmm.
and what's actually going to allow you to move forward in it. And I think that's really important, is actually weighing out, do I want to fulfill the calling that I have, the mission that I want to accomplish? And yeah, maybe I will lose out on some of these other areas, or do I want to stay in a state of probably mediocrity, to be completely honest? And so, no, these are really good, but they're also hard for a lot of people. So actually, I mean, do you have an example of your life when you had to do this, when you had to maybe let some stuff go because you had to kind of keep elevating yourself to keep growing?
Let me think. Something that I had to let go to allow myself to keep growing. Yes. But honestly, I need a second to like process it in my head and think about how to say it.
Oh, totally, totally. No, that's all good. And maybe I'll share a story while you're kind of processing it. That's totally fine. Like I know for a fact that I had to, because I grew up in a pretty small town, and there was a lot of people that didn't, number one, get the online coaching space. They didn't get how it worked. They thought it was a scam or whatever it was. And so there's a lot of friendships that I had to let go and slowly kind of deteriorated, because I knew that I was called to do something really, really big and massive. And it's not fun. There was a couple of years where I was extremely lonely. But at the end of the day, when I always came back to, would I rather be continuing to grow this and be a little bit lonely, but also then I started to work on getting better friends, or would I go back to my old state? And I know that to be fulfilled and to actually be honestly just happy, I needed that progress. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, that's kind of one of the stories that I've had to go through. There's a couple different ones,
Yeah.
but that's one of them.
I will say that in business anyway, I'm pretty fortunate in that all my friends have been really supportive of me. I
Right.
would, yeah, I don't think
That's
any
awesome.
non-entrepreneur, yeah, I really am very fortunate in it. It's not very common. And I try not to forget that. There have been times in business where I've been a part of a community or group and
Mm,
we've needed to let each other go
right.
because we were just moving in different directions, and it broke my heart. I was actually the one who left in the example that I'm thinking of, and when I left and got integrated into another community, my business doubled. It almost tripled that year.
Yeah. There you
And
go.
that is not to say that that first community was wrong or bad or anything like that. I don't think I experienced a lot of growth while I was there.
For
It was
sure.
just that I had gotten to another level. And so it was challenging. And I'm still friends with a lot of people from that time in my business. And the ones that I'm not friends with is just because we lost touch. That's all.
Totally.
But it was challenging to make that decision because it felt like these people were my family and I have to stay with them. But I also saw that there was something bigger. Like I had reached the ceiling
Yeah.
essentially.
No, honestly, and that's the case, and it might be kind of harsh to say, but the principle will come through basically when you're in a room, and they always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you have to get into a new room,
Yeah.
and you want to always be in a room that's a little bit scary to be in. And that's it's sometimes sad that you have to leave these rooms, but again, it comes down to what do you truly want, what do you truly feel you're called to, and if that's the case, you have to keep moving forward. So I think
Yeah.
people listening to this are going to find this helpful because most of them are in that growth stage, and so they're probably going to find this very relevant. Now,
Yeah.
I know I think you had one more myth that you wanted to talk about in marketing, of maybe something that people are doing right now that they should be stopping. So run through another one if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, before I do, can I add just one last thing to our.
Yes.
So obviously, you guys heard or saw the discomfort I had when Ruben asked me that question, because I was like, how can I say this so that anybody, like, feeling a certain way about what I'm going to say? That was fear of judgment,
Mm,
right?
right.
And so I worked through that. Thank you, Ruben, for giving me like a couple minutes to do that. And that was a really good story too. And that what you shared, and it got me present too. I'm really fortunate that that hasn't happened to me in business yet.
Right. Yeah.
But it was more important for me, for you guys to hear that message. And so I weighed it.
Yeah.
Is it more like, am I going to be uncomfortable, or am I going to withhold this really important message
Hmm.
and stay comfortable, or am I going to get a little uncomfortable? It's not going to kill me or my business or my life. My house isn't going to fall down. Like that. It's not a problem,
Yeah.
So just wanted to say that that was fear of judgment, and I pushed through it so you guys could hear that
Perfect.
message.
I love it. I love it. It's a prime example for everyone listening to this. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So the last myth, it's that people think that they need to be killing themselves in order to do their online marketing or their business. Honestly, they
Right.
try to like fit themselves into a box that just does not feel right to them, and they're resisting and they're resisting, and they're like, oh, is this what it's supposed to be like? No, there isn't supposed to be resistance with the things that you're doing. Now, resistance though is a very broad term.
Right.
You have to look at that resistance and see, is it me just being uncomfortable with this, or is it truly out of my values, out of alignment? Like for
Yeah.
me, to go cold calling, I feel resistance to that.
For
Is it
sure.
because I'm uncomfortable picking up the phone and calling a random person? No, because I don't believe that's how my business should be done,
Yeah.
you know? But like the first time I went on live video, I had resistance. But
Hmm.
was it because it wasn't right for me? No, it's because I had a lot of fears.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think it's good to basically you want to split. Resistant can be either there's a version of it that's an alignment, and there's a version of it that's just uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
And I actually I would have the same thought process where there's certain things that I've just not wanted to do in business because I didn't feel like, for me it was like they didn't actually fit my values and like the values of my business actually, so they were unaligned to it. But resistance on the other end, I mean, there, obviously resistance, if we want to get metaphorical, as far as like being in the gym, resistance is great. It includes growth, but that's more getting uncomfortable, not being unaligned. And I think people need to find, maybe it's kind of a balance, right? Being uncomfortable, but also being aligned and understanding what that is. So that's actually, it's a good thing if you're doing something, you're feeling resistance. Maybe the form of figuring it out is analyzing it and being like, why don't I like this?
Right.
Is it just because the weights are too heavy? Well, then I mean that means I should push harder. Or if it's like this is the like I don't want to be doing this kind of exercise because it's not good for my body. Like it's a bit of a difference like that. So I mean, would you have a way to differentiate them other than that?
You have to be really honest with yourself. I don't really have anything that I could say that like would fit all situations,
Right.
besides be truly honest with yourself. And if you're having a hard time having a clear enough head, because it's so hard to see the label from inside the bottle, right?
Yeah.
So, I would reach out to somebody that you really trust, if you have someone like that in your life, and just kind of throw it at them and be like, I have this experience that I'm going through. I
Hmm.
don't know if it's actually wrong for me,
Right.
or if I'm just uncomfortable doing it. So I would say
Right.
talk it out with yourself or with another person, and see, just go through a discovery phase of it. And honestly, I don't think that there's any right or wrong answer. Whatever you feel is totally natural. And I think you also become a lot more in tune with your own feelings as time goes on and as you do the work too. It's not just time ticking, it's you have to do the work. And sometimes you may get it wrong. You may think that it was out of alignment when it was really that you were just uncomfortable, but that's okay. Maybe you'll come back to it, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that was a really good thing to talk about, because I think that I've seen both extremes. Sometimes people are like, I just need to keep pushing. It's like, no, I don't think you're aligned with that. But then I have seen the opposite, where people are like, this feels like there's so much resistance. I don't want to do it. Things should like flow. They should be easy. And I'm like, have you ever tried to build muscle and it was easy? No. Like if it want to be easy, go get the 2-pound like dumbbells and only work out with those, and like only do like 10 reps. Yeah, that'll be easy, but it'll never actually stimulate growth. So I think that's really good. It's going to be a little bit different per person, but asking someone that knows you really well, doing some self-awareness on it. I think processing it, maybe it's journaling or whatever it is, figure it out, because I think it's really important to not be in the wrong area on either side too long. You want to learn how to correct that faster. So that's really good. Thanks for sharing that. That's actually, that's a really good topic to hit on.
Yeah, and that one's one we could talk about all day too, I feel like.
No, we
and
definitely
even then, like sitting down and doing the work too, if you're resistant against that about even exploring, then take a step back further and be like, why don't I even want to explore? And then that's you exploring anyway.
Exactly.
And I love that you called out the mindset of everything needs to be in flow and easy. It's not in a certain way, yes, in flow meaning in alignment, but not that it doesn't require work and discomfort. Yeah, and I loved that example you gave of working out. If I want to make my muscles bigger and stronger, I need to use heavier weights.
Totally. And it's the same thing with working out, because some people like to do different types of workout, right? Some people like the calisthenics, or they like whether it's like resistant bands, or it's weights, or it's cardio. People like different forms of it, which is great. They find their aligned version. I'm doing quote unquote for people that are listening, like aligned version of working out that feels great for them. But then every form does include resistance. Every form, there is that uncomfortable state to get to the next level. Like I did a Peloton ride this morning, and my muscles hurt, but I really enjoyed it, and I felt really like I love riding like a Peloton in the morning. And so I think that's so beautiful. So I want to kind of tail this off and ask kind of the question that we always ask at the end of this show. Actually, so it'll be 2 questions, because obviously I want people to know about your stuff, what they can check out to find out more about marketing, the different ways that they keep on moving forward, optimizing it. We'll dive into that in a second. But the last kind of question for the podcast is, what allowed you, and we talked a little bit about like how you're being like just a little bit like a child, just going after everything, which is great. But what was maybe a tool or something that was tactical that helped you go from just kind of living life in the back seat to starting to take the driver's seat and starting to actually go after it? Whether it was a mindset shift, a little tool, an accountability partner, what helped you make that shift?
I've gone through a lot of shifts in my life, and I would say the one that I'm going to share isn't the one that I used at the very beginning. At the very beginning, it was a mindset like, let's play. Yeah. That's actually, you know what? Let's do that. Well, no, I'll give you both. Let's play. Have a playful mindset.
I love that.
And if like it gets hard, like I'm thinking about technology and marketing specifically, if you're not tech savvy, then that can be a little frustrating, right? So just have the mindset of let's play around, let's not make mistakes. I just released a tech course recently, and I said that so much in my videos. Like I taught the basics of each thing, and then I was like, yeah, there's more. Just go play with it. Go break things, you know? So I would say that. The thing that I was originally going to say that was involved in almost every stage of up-leveling in my business was having some sort of mastermind or accountability group. Right. And we would be really, really strict, very structured, not strict, very structured with how we did things. We had like a group chat. We would get on the phone once a week, and we knew like we had a structure for those calls. And I really, really think that contributed a lot to my growth in those periods. And it made entrepreneurship so much less lonely. You're totally right. It can be really lonely.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. So 2 tips there is to learn to play, learn to enjoy stuff, and like really think of it in that sense. Like it's not always like this dreary, like hard thing. Like actually get excited about it. Number 1, I love that. And number 2, yeah, the accountability of whether it's a mastermind or a group of people going after the same thing or similar things. So that's really great. So now let's share 2 things. One, where can people kind of see most of your content, where you share your stuff, whether it's social media, podcast, website, and then also maybe something that you have right now that you're giving out to people. Maybe it's like something that's going to help them with their marketing. So share some of that stuff.
Oh, well, I would love to connect with everybody who's listening. And I know sometimes when you listen to podcasts or go on social media and see people and stuff, you may see that person as like being inaccessible, but I literally want to talk to each one of you. So I'll give you some links, but I want you to message me and let me know that you heard me on this podcast and tell me what your biggest takeaway was. Let's have a conversation. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. My username is I am Tara Wilder. And then I have my agency, a Facebook group, and my podcast. My podcast's Unforgettable Online Marketing. And we just had Ruben on the show too.
Yes, we
And
did.
you can find links to all of those things if you go to tarawilder.com.
Perfect, Tara. Well, thank you for sharing that. Everyone listening, go check out the stuff that sounded like it would be a good fit to help you with where you're at in your journey. And yeah, I just want to thank you one last time for being on, Tara.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And I actually do have a tool that could help them too. I have this quiz that tells you exactly where you need to put your focus in over the next month in order to supercharge your online presence. Because
I love that.
one of the biggest questions I get asked when I go to like networking events or talk to clients or leads, whoever it is, they're like, I don't know what to do next. So we spent quite a while creating this quiz, and it's totally free too. You just put in information about your online presence, and then at the end, it tells you which area you need to focus on, and then gives you a roadmap for how to best optimize that area in your online presence. So if you want that, go to tarawilder.com/supercharge.
Perfect. I love that. That sounds like a great quiz. So you guys should all go check that out. Figure out what's holding you back and what can allow you to get to that next level with your marketing. So amazing. Thank you for being on. And guys, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, share it on social media. You can tag Taro and myself. And we're just excited to get this message out there and help more of you guys just build your businesses. So
Absolutely.
anyways, we're going to jump off for the day, but thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.